Please be seated.
Yes.
Judge, I don't know if this is an issue or not, but a juror, I don't want to say her name, I told the defense her name, I don't have her number yet. Apparently works with the second cousin of Walter Scott. I do not know whether the juror knows that she works with the second cousin of Walter Scott, but I wanted to bring that to the court's attention. I can get you the number of the
All right. Mr. Savage, any comment?
I don't know anything about it,
All right. Okay, very well.
I don't know how it, I guess, how it came to the attention from the jurors themselves.
Solicitor?
Your Honor, Mr. Scott's brother, Anthony, who is here in the courtroom, it's my understanding that he heard from his cousin that one of the cousin's co-workers was on the jury. That's the extent. Like I said, I don't know if the juror realizes that the juror works with the cousin or not.
The cousin's co-worker works at the same place as a juror.
Walter Scott's cousin, second cousin, has a job and has a coworker who's on the jury.
Okay.
For whatever it's worth.
All right, that's not an issue that needs to be addressed at this time. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. If you'll bring the jury.
All jurors are present, Your Honor.
Very well. You may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. State Sergeant Scott Hill, North Charleston Police Department.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you shall give the court and the jury in the trial of this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I will.
Sir? Please state your first and last name, and spell your last name loudly, clearly into the microphone.
My first name is Scott. My last name is Hill. It's Hille.
Thank you. May it please the court. Sergeant Hill, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you today?
Well, yourself?
Doing well, thanks. Where are you currently employed,
The North Charleston Police Department.
and what is your current rank in that organization?
I'm a sergeant.
And how long have you been with the North Charleston Police Department?
I've been with the North Charleston Police Department since 2001, previously employed with the Fire Department in North Charleston since 1999.
And since 2001, if you could just share with the jury sort of your progression through the North Charleston Police Department, different ranks and roles and duties.
I began in patrol. After September 11th of 2001, I was selected to enter the K-9 unit. I spent 5 years in the K-9 unit, working in dual purpose, explosive, and patrol dog. After that, I went back to patrol for a little bit, a year or two, and then was back in K-9 to finish working another dog. I was promoted to sergeant and went back to patrol. From there, I went to, as a sergeant, to the Support Services Bureau where I currently work.
Okay. And what is that support services?
We basically do all of the support material from vehicles to computers and cameras and anything that, equipment, any type of equipment that the department would need.
And you mentioned that you're currently a sergeant, correct?
Correct.
And you're a sergeant sort of with a specialized focus, is that correct?
Correct.
And what focus is that?
All of the technology, implementation, the design and development of vehicles, basically making sure that the patrolmen have a way to get to and from calls.
Is a technology coordinator, would that be a good generalized title for you?
Correct.
Okay. And what sort of technology, you said specifically within the patrol vehicle, is that correct?
Correct.
What kind of specific technology is within a modern patrol vehicle?
It ranges quite widely from agency to agency. For us, it's emergency warning equipment. There's communications equipment. Currently, we have laptops and tablets to run both computer-aided dispatch, NCIC functions, automated license plate reader functions. There's also in-car video recording equipment.
Okay. The in-car video recording equipment that's sometimes referred to as a dash camera or a dash cam.
Correct.
How long have you been in your current position for the North Charleston Police Department?
3 to 4 years.
3 years. Are you sort of the local guru for that sort of thing, the in-car?
I don't know about a master of any of those things, but yeah,
Okay.
the go-to
Sure.
guy.
The go-to guy for North Charleston in relation to in-car technology.
Correct.
Okay. Where are these videos in this day and age are stored digitally, is that correct? For the most part?
So there's a couple of different ways that you can store them, but yes, we have them stored on a hosted hard drive or a hosted server that we have, and they're also backed up currently with Blu-ray backup discs.
Okay. And is it fair to say that you are the administrator of that server where these are stored?
I am.
At least initially. Okay. And were you in that same position on April 4th, 2015?
I was.
And if I could take you back to that date, how did you become involved in the events of April 4th?
I received a telephone call from Deputy Chief Scott Deckard advising that there had been an officer-involved shooting. There was, it stemmed from a traffic stop. There was likely going to be the need for me to respond to the scene and retrieve the video from the patrol vehicle.
Okay, if I could just briefly interrupt, you recall approximately what time this phone call was?
It was around the noon hour, I believe. It was midday.
Okay. And were you asked to, so you were asked to respond to the scene?
I was, yes.
And where was that scene?
The scene was off of Remount Road.
Okay. Could you describe that in a little bit more detail? Are you familiar with that area?
I am. I believe it's close to Craig Street.
Okay. Was there an auto parts store?
There were two, yes.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
Where's the witness?
There is no need for any counsel to get my permission to approach the witness from henceforth in this
Thank you,
case.
Your Honor. Third Hill, I'm showing you what's been marked for ID only is the State's Exhibit 1. Can you just take a moment, kind of orientate yourself?
Okay.
Do you recognize this area?
I do.
And what area is that?
That is the Remount Road and Rivers intersection on my left. Remount basically progresses across the image.
We mentioned an auto parts store. Can you identify where the auto parts store is in the?
Right here.
That's sort of the top left here. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Permission to publish, Your
Is there an evidence?
Honor? State would move State's Exhibit 1, I believe, without objection. Without objection.
Submit without objection, you may publish anything that's in evidence.
Thank you. Did you respond to that area?
I did.
And how did you proceed once you responded to the scene?
I was in civilian clothes, my personal vehicle. I parked outside of the initial scene and approached one of the patrol officers that was guarding the perimeter, if you would, identified myself and proceeded to the command post that had been set up and to let them know that I was there.
And do you recall where, sort of within the scene? You recognize those items?
I do.
And what are they?
They are the 6 copies, or the 6 discs, DVD discs that we burned for evidence in this case.
And was that video, to your knowledge as administrator of the system, altered or amended or tampered by you in any way before being provided to SLED?
No,
Does the software, at that time, give the user the ability to do that?
no,
Do those 6 DVDs contain true and accurate copies of the video captured by the responding officers that day in this incident?
they should.
The response to Craig's feet on April 4th, 2015?
Yes,
Your Honor, this time seek to move states 2 through 7 into evidence.
Without objection.
They're admitted without objection.
State at this time will seek to publish a portion of states 2. Approximately 8 minutes. you hear sort of music playing on those video clips? What's the likely source of that?
The vehicle-mounted stereo,
That's just the radio in the car.
your regular AM/FM stereo in a car.
We also hear some audio, voices, and whatever, the interactions with the car and the person. What's another source of that audio input to the car?
There are several different microphones available in the L3 system. One is worn in a small transmitter on the officer. The other is a microphone that is mounted in the vehicle to capture audio from within the vehicle.
Okay, and the microphone on the officer, where is that typically located on that?
They carry it anywhere from their shirt pocket to the belt.
And that's obviously transmitted wirelessly back to the storage device in the vehicle.
Correct.
And what's generally the range that picks up audio?
The design is for the immediate area in and around the vehicle. There's a lot of things that can affect that. So we typically get 100 yards, maybe a little bit more from the vehicles.
Well, but that can depend on physical obstructions, things of that nature.
Correct.
And there's, there's a point at which an officer can get a certain distance from the vehicle where that audio feed is going to cut off. Is that
Correct.
Sergeant Hill, thank you for being here, answering questions of the defense suspect.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, Sergeant.
Afternoon, sir.
You have been engaged in first response work for 17 years.
Yes, sir.
First as a fire department responder, and more recently as a police officer.
Yes, sir.
In your capacity as a police officer, I understood from your testimony that you were a patrolman.
I was.
And you are familiar with the duties of a patrolman in North Charleston.
I am.
And you therefore would be familiar with the duties of Officer Slager and April 115.
Yes, sir.
And you have had an opportunity to review the video marked as State's Exhibit Number 2, which was just played in the bench with the jury on one or more occasions.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything in that video, either visually or in the audio, that's not an absolute straight arrow profession?
Not that I can think of, sir.
The video shows that the Mercedes had been followed from east to west on Greenmount Road.
Correct.
And the video would show that there were on 2 occasions an observation of the equipment issue. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And is it true that the policy of the North Charleston Police Department and the training that is provided there is not that you immediately stop somebody for an equipment failure, but it's a verification? So in this case, the video would show that the observation of the Mercedes was at a traffic light in which the brake light did not work, and a subsequent verification at the railroad tracks that the brake light did not work.
Yes, sir.
And that's policy.
Yes, sir.
And the blue lights, the stopping of the vehicle for the equipment issue, did not occur until after that verification.
I'm sorry?
The stopping, the blue lights, the method in which you use to stop people did not occur until after that verification.
Correct.
The video would show, was played for the jury this afternoon, that a separate communication system from the body mic or the vehicle recording was used for Officer Slager to communicate with dispatch.
Correct.
Is that in accordance with policy?
Yes.
And that policy requires an identification of location, reason for the stop, and the identification of the vehicle that is being stopped.
Correct.
Was that done on this occasion?
I believe so, sir.
The vehicle that was stopped, I noticed that it didn't turn to the right, but turned to the left and crossed oncoming traffic, although there wasn't any. The vehicle turned to the left into a commercial establishment. Is that correct?
Correct.
Up until that stop, was there anything of either the driver or on the part of the police officer indicate anything other than a routine stop?
Not that I know of, sir.
When the officer, as you all say, exited, when the officer got out of his vehicle, he put his hand on the back of the vehicle that had been stopped.
Correct.
Is that in accordance with policy and procedure?
Policy and good practice.
And what is the reason for that?
There's several reasons. The most prominent one that we believe in is that that's your one opportunity to leave your fingerprints on the vehicle. If something happens tragically in the stop and the vehicle flees and you're disabled or unable to provide any further descriptions, the likelihood that the investigators following through would be able to find your fingerprints remains.
It's an automatic reflex of a patrolman stopping a vehicle regardless of where or when. That's just part of the DNA of the officer in a traffic stop.
Correct.
Does the policy and procedure, which was employed in April of 2015, require the officer making the stop to identify the reason for the stop?
To the operator,
To the operator of the vehicle, is the operator of the vehicle informed of why the vehicle was stopped?
it is good practice to do such.
Was it done in this case?
I believe so.
Is part of the training and practice in a vehicle stop, regardless of the reason therefore, is it always a question to ask, may I see your driver's license?
Yes.
May I see your registration?
Yes.
May I see your insurance policy?
Yes.
And those documents that are asked are required not by the officer, by law, to be present in the vehicle when it's operated on the roads of South Carolina.
Correct.
When the officer returned to his vehicle, do you know, based on your practice and experience, what the officer would have done in the vehicle?
I can give you a pretty good,
Well, tell us what the practice is, what the responsibility of the officer is to do at that time.
first would be to verify that the individual that provided you the license is the same individual pictured on the license you're holding in your hand, if you haven't already done that.
Is that because people who drive vehicles sometimes aren't the people
Unfortunately, sir, you were correct.
And what else are they supposed to do?
We're supposed to verify the insurance is current, the registration's current, that the license itself is current.
And the vehicle itself, the ownership of the vehicle?
Correct.
Because sometimes people drive cars that aren't their own, and there are other issues that may arise. Is that
Correct.
Now, did you see the operator of the vehicle that was stopped get out of the vehicle?
I did.
And was a policy and procedure, good practice of patrolmen to always separate themselves from the operator of the vehicle? In other words, are they invited back to sit in the front seat of the patrol car, or are they kept separate from the patrol car?
Kept separate.
And is that policy and procedure?
Good practice.
And that's done to protect the safety of the individuals involved?
Correct.
Did you notice that there was a passenger in the vehicle?
I did.
And do you know, based on policy and practice and your training and experience, is that is a concern of a law enforcement officer who stops the vehicle?
Yes.
Now, from what you viewed in the video that was shown to the jury, did the inquiry as to the driver of the vehicle or the owner of the car or the insurance information, was that ever responded to of what you saw on the video?
It was.
Did the officer receive return information to confirm the ownership or the status of the driver of the vehicle?
It's my understanding that he received conflicting information.
That was from the driver of the vehicle.
Correct.
The question is, when he got back in his vehicle, he being the officer involved in the stop, he has an opportunity to call somewhere out there and find out more about the driver of the vehicle, the ownership of the vehicle, and insurance of the vehicle.
Correct.
Was there ever a return of that information?
I'm not sure.
If there was a return of the information, that would be on the video.
It would be located on the video at some point. It would also be in audio tapes from dispatch or computer logs.
Let's talk about Officer Slager's equipment on the morning of April 4th. In response to the prosecutor's question, you said that officers in North Charleston have computers.
Some of them do, yes.
Would it be fair to say that in April of 2015, that was maybe not a rarity, but that wasn't common to have a computer?
We were getting to be more common with computers. It's been a challenge.
It was in a transition from old-timey communications, old-timey in this sense being a radio dispatch to headquarters or wherever that is to get the information.
Correct.
The new way of getting information is a computer in a vehicle.
Correct.
Do you know whether Officer Slager had a computer in his vehicle?
I believe he did.
And the information then that would have come back from headquarters or dispatch or whatever would have been on a screen in his vehicle's computer.
I believe he could query Department of Motor Vehicle records, but I believe a check of NCIC would have been done over the radio.
And that information, by looking at the computer, you could tell after the fact that that information had not been received.
I believe you could, yes.
And in your observation of the video, did you see any reason, plausible explanation for Mr. Scott to run?
Your Honor. Call for speculation.
Response.
The question is, based on his training and experience, did you see in the video any reason for Mr. Scott?
I heard the question, the response to the objection.
What the objection he has?
Restate the objection.
Call for speculate for the reasoning going on in Mr. Scott's law.
Objection is the question calls for speculation.
The information in the video was recorded in the trunk of the police car, is that correct?
In this case, I believe it was the center console.
And as I understood your testimony, that's preserved, and that is how it got to the courtroom today.
Correct.
The source of audio communications with that video would be twofold, or threefold. A microphone in the unit itself, that's where we hear the music,
Correct.
and then a microphone worn on the body of Officer Slager,
Correct.
and then he, in addition to that microphone, would also have a radio.
Handheld, portable radio, also worn on the belt.
Hopefully not to be confusing. The audio communications to the dispatch could also be recorded in the unit.
There's also a mobile radio installed in the car, which if the officer broadcast on his portable, would be rebroadcast and heard within the cab of the police car, and also captured on the in-car video microphone mounted on the partition.
And the technology is such that you could go to the different channels and segregate the audio sound,
Correct.
so that the jury, if they wanted to listen to the communications that day, could be unburdened by 98 rock music.
I believe so.
And based on your training and experience as a patrolman, as an officer in the training department, it's good practice and suggested that officers, before using their taser, warn the party who is going to be used against.
Yes, sir.
And in watching and listening to the audio of this recording, that was done.
Yes, sir.
And it was done within close proximity of the radio signal from the portable microphone back to the unit itself.
It was, sir.
And there were other warnings given on the video, audio warnings from the officer in the driver of the vehicle,
Yes, sir.
including the second warning of the taser,
I believe so.
and a warning to get on the ground.
Yes, sir.
Now, if we can, as far as State's Exhibit 1, we have another image so that I don't have to walk up and down. Officer, would you say that this image, if it comes up, is basically the same as the one shown earlier?
I believe the majority of the images are similar.
Do you recognize the intersection of Rivers Avenue with Remount Road?
I do, sir.
And it would be fair to say that Remount Road runs generally in an east-west direction,
It does? Correct.
And if we were in a helicopter, we would be less than a mile from the property owned by the Charleston County Deviation Authority, just west of this area.
I believe so.
And the area where you saw the vehicle that you recovered the data from was on the corner of Craig, is it street or road? And Remount Road, is that correct?
Correct.
And that yellow path or whatever it is, sort of towards the center of the visual, are you familiar with that area?
I am, sir.
And did the State Law Enforcement Division that investigated this case ever ask you to test the distance, given the conditions there, the foliage, the leaves, the other buildings, to approximate or test the distance in which communications would travel back to the police unit?
No, sir.
Did not ask you to do that?
They did not ask me to replicate with that vehicle and those recorders and transmitters.
Did the State Law Enforcement Division that investigated this case involving Officer Slager and Mrs. Scott ask you to preserve the microphone that was used by Officer Slager on the morning of April 4th?
Initially, no.
Was the microphone that was used by Officer Slager kept in any fashion separate from the other microphones and the other supplies at the direction of the chief of police, some lieutenant, captain, major, assistant chief, or any slave?
Not that I'm aware of.
Do we know where the microphone that Officer Slager used is?
Definitively, I don't think I can answer that.
Because we don't know.
I don't know.
That's the audio portion of this video that the prosecutor has shown this jury so that they could better understand what happened that morning.
Correct. That is the source of the audio.
Excuse me for just a minute. Are there any additional questions the prosecutor might have? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Officer Hill, you were asked, based on your experience as a patrolman, former experience, to talk about sort of the steps an officer takes at a typical traffic stop. Do you recall
Yes.
that? I believe you said the first step was license verify. Is that correct?
We asked them to produce a driver's license.
Right, and not only just produce it, but once produced, verify.
Correct.
And what does that mean?
And verify the person behind the wheel of the car is the same on the license you're holding.
And you said, Mr. Savage, went to some effort to establish that Officer Slager, to you, seems to have followed these best practices So not only did Officer Slager have in his hand and in his possession Walter Scott's license, he would have, had he followed those practices, known that it was Walter Scott's license, not some fake ID, if he would have verified it right there.
At face value, yes.
Okay. Also, some questions were asked about equipment. You've expressed some familiarity with the typical equipment that a patrol officer might carry.
Yes.
Is it true that they might carry other types of equipment in their patrol vehicle?
Yes.
Right, and would that kind of extra equipment perhaps include other weapons, other firearms?
We have a policy where less lethal shotguns are used and patrol rifles.
And might those be stored in the patrol vehicle?
In the trunk, yes.
Okay. And you mentioned that, and Mr. Savage's cross, that a passenger in a vehicle is always a concern, right?
Correct?
Because it's another person you have to worry about, right?
Correct?
And these are very fluid, could be dangerous situations, right?
Correct.
Now you mentioned that Officer Slager followed, the question I believe was framed in policy and procedures, and your responses were, it's not policy and procedures, but good practices, right?
Correct.
And those are good practices that you've learned over a long career in law enforcement, right?
Correct.
Is leaving a running patrol vehicle, which may contain weapons, alone with an unknown passenger in a vehicle to chase someone down for a broken taillight, does that comport with these good practices that you've talked about? I know it's difficult to criticize another officer's work, but does that comport with your years of experience?
There's a lot of decisions that have to be made
Absolutely.
right there and then. The absolute prudent thing would be to have secured that vehicle, running or not, but at least locked,
Right. Especially for a broken taillight.
for any reason.
On the software that records the sound that we've heard on the video, the L3 software, I'm sorry.
The L3 system,
It's taking on audio from the mic that we've discussed on the officer's person
correct?
and an in-car mic.
Correct.
Does the software allow you to cut off the audio input from one or the other if you need to while operating?
The officer can turn off the microphone.
Right.
It's a recessed switch, not easily accessible to avoid inadvertent switching. When watching the video, we can isolate those different lines coming in,
1 feet or the other.
one feed at a time, correct?
So if we need to do that, that can be done.
Yes,
Yeah, that can be done on the player that we played here in court.
correct.
So we're just going to have to use the interface again. Screen over. And how would one operate that to isolate the different sources?
In the,
Yeah, Mr. Durant.
In the window that's open, the upper left-hand corner where you see audio, and then there's 3 boxes. There's VLP1, VLP2, and in-car audio. By selecting or unselecting those will eliminate that particular audio track or include it when you play.
Okay, so we need to remove the music from the car, that can be done.
Correct. If you remove and unselect the in-car audio, you will lose the in-car audio completely.
Okay. And just give an example.
if I may, when it begins playing, there's no sound recorded in the pre-record.
Oh, thank you.
So that's why it's quiet.
That's in the 20 seconds, it's automatically recorded.
Correct.
So by toggling the switch in the upper left-hand corner, you can vary between the different audio sources.
Correct.
Thank you, sir. No,
Briefly, so do I understand based on the inquiry of the solicitor that if an officer in the traffic stop wanted to manipulate or hide a conversation with a driver of the vehicle, they could just turn the microphone off?
They could, but it is difficult to do. The switch is small and it is recessed and not easy to do.
I do.
Doable.
16 years being a first responder, and however many years as a patrolman working in the police department, have you ever known anybody to run from a broken taillight?
Not that I could think of in my experience.
Because people don't run from something they don't even get a ticket for. They run for some other reason. In the national studies of people who are engaged in vehicle chases.
Objection, Your Honor.
Thanks.
You must step down.
Thank you.
Your next witness. All right, let's stand and get a little stretch while Tanya Millette is coming. Everybody. Yes. Want to be seated?
Do you swear affirm the testimony you shall give the court, the jury, and the trial of this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please state your first and last name and spell your last name loudly and clearly in the microphone.
Sure. Tanya Millette, Mallettee.
Good afternoon, Ms. Millette.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you again.
Same here.
You told the jury your name. Could you please tell them where you work, what you
Sure.
do for a living?
I am currently employed by the Charleston County Consolidated 911 Center.
And what is the purpose of the Charleston County Consolidated 911?
The 911 Center serves as the primary 911 and non-emergency answering point for the Charleston County community.
Okay. And so it's just not just 911 calls, but non-emergency calls, they're all routed through there as well?
Absolutely.
What is your position at the Consolidated 911 Center?
Currently, I am an analyst.
And what does an analyst do?
An analyst is responsible for subpoena compliance, Freedom of Information Act compliance, records custodian, and I also handle complaints
Okay. And how long have you been with the 911 Center?
since 2010.
And was that when the center opened?
Yes.
And what did you do before that?
Prior to joining Consolidation, I was the communications supervisor for North Charleston Police Department.
Okay. And what did you do in that job?
I was the communications supervisor.
And what does the communication supervisor do? is what I'm asking.
Yes, I supervise a team of 24 members, providing effective supervision and administration, employee development, training, budgeting, administrative duties, scheduling, and I also, during shortages, perform dispatching duties as well as call-taking duties.
Okay, because back then, everybody had their own dispatch center. right?
Absolutely, yes.
Everybody had their own 911 center. And that's the purpose of the Consolidated 911 Center, correct? So every law enforcement agency doesn't run their own.
Correct.
But that's what you were doing back before the Consolidated Center, correct?
Yes, yes.
Now, when you first started with the Consolidated 911 Center back in 2010, what were you doing?
I was a floor supervisor through 2010, 2011.
Okay, and could you tell our jury briefly how the Consolidated 911 Center works?
Sure. It's set up in different stages. So when a call comes in through 911 or the administrative lines, it is answered by a call taker. That call taker will inquire as well as verify the location as well as the caller's name.
How do they verify the location?
We have what you call an ANI, alley screen, automatic number indicator, automatic location indicator, and it displays, let me clarify, if it's a landline phone, it will display the resident or the business information. If it's a cell phone, it will display the tower information.
Okay, so when the caller comes in, and y'all already know pretty much the area he's calling from, correct?
Yes,
Is a landline pretty much exactly, if it's a cell phone, the area, correct?
correct.
I imagine nowadays you probably get a lot more cell phone calls than landline calls.
We do, much more, yes.
And what happens when the 911 call comes in?
It is answered by a call taker. As I said, they inquire and verify the location as well as the telephone number. They will begin to ask a series of questions. We call those protocols. Depending on the answer to those protocols, it is directed to a resource, be it law, EMS, fire, or rescue for dispatch.
And are all calls into the 911 center recorded?
Yes,
And the 911 center is not just a calling center, it's also the dispatch for the entire county, is that correct?
Yes,
Y'all dispatch for Charleston County Sheriff's Department, North Charleston Police Department, Mount Pleasant Police Department, all of these agencies, correct?
yes,
So y'all are joint dispatcher and 911 call receiver, correct?
yes.
Now, you said that all calls into the system are recorded, is that correct?
Yes,
And how are they recorded?
they're recorded by, we call it, well, it's referred to as the NICE recording system.
And how about calls, cases such as this one, which didn't originate with the 911 call, but pretty much radio traffic? Do y'all record all that as well?
Yes, radio traffic is also recorded.
Okay. Because it all routes through the consolidated center, correct?
Yes,
And are those radio transmissions recorded at or about at the time that they are made?
yes, they are.
And are the radio transmissions maintained in the normal and ordinary course of business at the consolidated 911 center?
Yes, they are.
And how long are these recordings maintained by the 911 center?
For a period of 1 year.
And what happens after a year?
They are overwritten or purged from the system.
Okay. Now, directing your attention to August 26th of 2015, did my office, the solicitor's office, request that you provide us with a copy of the real-time radio transmissions related to the officer involved, shooting involving the defendant, in this case, Michael Slager.
Yes, you did.
And what are real-time radio transmissions?
Real time is the actual time that the incident occurred.
Okay. And, because oftentimes when people ask you for 911 calls, you'll give them a condensed version, correct?
Correct.
Take out all the dead time,
And the silence, correct.
and the difference between that and the real time is that it occurs at the same time that these events occurred in real life. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And what did you do upon receiving this request?
Upon receiving this subpoena, I downloaded the information from my computer, from the NICE system onto my computer, and sent it by way of internet to your office, in which you downloaded it from there.
Okay. And in the process of downloading it from the NICE system to your computer, did you alter, amend, or edit the recordings in any way?
I did not.
And did you even have the capacity to do so?
I do not.
And I'm going to hand you now what's previously been marked as State's Exhibit Number 8, and ask if you can identify this.
Sure. This is the real-time audio of the North Charleston Police radio transmission.
And how do you know that?
Well, actually, I listened to it prior to initialing it and dating it
Okay, and you confirm that it is an exact copy
of what I sent you.
of what you sent us and what is stored on your computer at this consolidated 911 center. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Been edited, altered, tampered with in any way?
Correct.
It has or has not?
Has
Has it
not.
or has not?
It has not
Okay.
been altered or edited.
And you know that because you compared it to the original dated and initial. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Those are your initials right here with October 14, 2016, correct?
That is correct.
Your Honor, we would offer State's Exhibit 8 in evidence at this time without objection.
Admit it.
And I have no further questions of this witness.
Good afternoon, Mr. Blair.
Good afternoon.
Let's go a little bit more depth of what you do, so that the jury has a full understanding of how communications work with first responders. Prior
prior to 2010, every jurisdiction, that was the City of Charleston, Mount Pleasant, County Sheriff, North Charleston, did I leave any out? All had their own
Alapone.
right, dispatch. And the only one that didn't jump aboard was Folly Beach, is that correct?
Well, Folly Beach did jump aboard, but they left.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But so in the consolidated, that means, consolidated means all the jurisdiction of first responders within the boundaries of Charleston County except for Folly.
That is correct.
And all the 911 phone calls, whatever their source, comes to that consolidated dispatch.
That is correct.
And those calls can be anything from a fire to a need for emergency medical services to a police department call for whatever reason police would be called.
That is correct.
So those are from what I would call civilian sources. People calling in who are not associated with first responders calling in for help.
That is correct.
And when those calls come into consolidated dispatch, are there designated employees who typically respond to, say, the City of Charleston?
As far as the telephone calls are concerned? Or the-
Any type of call that comes in.
Well-
Are there specific people who take the call per jurisdiction?
No,
Because you wouldn't know what the jurisdiction is, correct?
that is correct.
As opposed to police or fire or whatever communications to you, those can be reported to people that are designated for that particular jurisdiction.
No, all calls for radio transmission, yes, those are designated to the respective agency. Telephones, obviously, they go through the call taker.
Right, and in this case, we have response or communications from agency members to consolidated dispatch, no civilians.
Correct.
Now, when a call comes in for service, are there receiving people and then the message is transferred to somebody else who communicates with first responders?
That is correct.
And those those communicators with first responders have more TVs than are in this room.
That is correct.
And on those TVs, let's say, City of North Charleston, for example, in April of 2015, 18 months ago, a person working, communicating with police officers about their needs and where they should go, they can tell by looking at a screen where all the police officers working that day are located. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And on those screens where a person given those communications, those are real time for officers who have a computer in their car. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And the officers who don't have a computer in their car, their location is designated on your screen by the last known call.
That is correct.
So in terms of real time, those officers who have a computer, you know exactly where they are. Those officers who do not have a computer in their vehicle, you don't know exactly where they are. In theory, they're at work, but in terms of where they're located real time, it is not necessarily up to date.
That is correct.
But you can tell by a roster that's given at the beginning of the shift who is working that day.
That is correct.
So that if you were at the consolidated dispatch, were you there on April 4th, 2015?
I was not.
But if you had been there at the beginning of the shift, you could tell how many officers were working in North Charleston, and you could tell within the zones in which they work, who was available, so that you could tell them what to do.
That is correct.
And that information of who shows up for work that day is provided by some supervisor at North Charleston. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, when it comes to a civilian dialing 911, the decision on what officer to dispatch in response to that call is your decision. In
The
other
dis-
words,
the-
not yours personally, but the
The law
consolidated
dispatcher.
dispatch looks at the screen and says, Unit 241, respond to, and they give an address.
That is correct.
And before they go there, they say it's a criminal domestic violence, or it's a cat on the roof, or whatever that is. There's some indication of the security level.
That is correct.
And that protocol that the prosecutor talked about earlier depends on the type of call. If it's a cat on the roof, one officer goes. If it's criminal domestic violence, 2 officers are dispatched. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then so the whole deal that police do all day long is categorized in consolidated dispatch so that the officer can be safe.
That is correct.
Because multiple officers arriving at a potential scene for violence, the risk to the citizens involved or the police officer is minimized by the number of officers there.
That is correct.
And that's the protocol. That's the rules we go by. After going back to the dispatch tapes and looking at whatever the prosecutor subpoenaed from you in real-time communications on April 4th of 2015, do you know how many people showed up for work that day at North Charleston?
I do not.
If a dispatcher assigned people to do non-urgent matters on the morning of April 4th, 2015, due to the number of available resources, that is, the number of police officers available, that can always be overruled by supervision, correct?
Yes.
Street supervision.
Yes.
Such as a sergeant working that day.
Yes.
So in theory, if there was only one patrolman on the streets that day, and dispatch asked the police officer to go pick up an iPad, that could be overruled.
That is correct.
And if a dispatcher asked another officer to go out and pick up a bench warrant for a simple possession of marijuana case where the fine hadn't been paid in full, that could be overruled as well.
That is correct.
But in order to overrule it, there has to be a sergeant, and a sergeant who's listening to what's going on.
That is correct.
Because we know when there's a violent episode or things go wrong, things that are apparently calm and nonviolent, it can change in a flash of a second.
That is correct. That is correct.
So when somebody's running down the street because somebody for a brake light is running away and refusing to stop and refusing even when a taser is shot at them, there can be an immediate response.
Your Honor, I would ask that Mr. Savage limit his question to a question rather than testimony.
All right, and the question, Mr. Savage?
Does the call 1080 require an urgent response?
Yes.
And that urgent response is based on the available resources, other officers working to arrive at the location where that 1080 call comes from. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Nothing further this way.
Thank you. You may
You're
sit
welcome.
down. Call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. State Clause Judy Scott.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you shall give the court and the jury in the trial of this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state your first and last name and spell your last name loudly, clearly to the microphone.
My name is Judy Scott, Scott.
Can you see the jury, Ms. Scott, over that?
Yes,
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Scott, I didn't embarrass you, but how old are you?
73.
And where are you from?
I was born in Charleston, reared in Detroit, Michigan.
What age were you when you came back to Charleston?
About 17, 18.
You've been here that long.
Yes,
And are you married?
yes,
And how long have you been married?
51 years.
Who's your husband?
Walter Scott,
And are you working, Ms. Scott?
not now, I'm retired.
Tell the jury what you did before you retired.
Well, my first job was at the Navy Yard. I was working in accounting. I worked there for 28 years.
That was, your first job was for 28 years?
Yes.
Okay. What'd you do after that?
Then I helped my husband with vending. He works for the South Carolina Commission for the Blind.
Does he have some vision issues?
Yes, he's legally blind.
Is that a complication of diabetes?
No, he was born with a glaucoma.
Oh, with glaucoma?
Yes,
Okay. And you had 3 children,
yes.
okay, and who were your children?
My first child was Anthony and Scott. My second child was Walter Lamar Scott. And my third child is Rodney Edwin Scott.
And Rodney and Anthony has been with you here in the courtroom, is that right?
Correct,
As it has your husband?
yes.
Now, let's talk about Walter for a minute. We met earlier today, little Lamar, who's not so little anymore, right?
Right,
And he and his brother are from Walter's wife, Lisa. Is that correct?
correct,
Now, Walter had 2 older children by another lady who's deceased. Is that right?
correct.
And what are their names?
Their name is Sebastian Scott and Samantha Scott.
And were you aware of any child support issues that Walter had with regards to Lisa and his 2 younger children? Did you ever know him to have any issues with child support?
I don't understand what you mean by issues.
Did you ever know that he went to jail for failure to pay child support?
Yes,
And did you help to get him out of jail?
yes.
Now, let me take you, Ms. Scott, back to April 4th, 2015, okay? You okay?
Yes,
You had a cell phone back then, still have a cell phone, is that
Yes,
Your number was 843-460-5720.
correct.
And what did you do on the morning of April 4th? Were you running some errands that morning?
Yes, I picked up my youngest grandson, Miles, to take him to get his glasses fixed.
And you picked him up from Lamar or Walter in Charlotte's place?
Yes.
And where were y'all going to go get these glasses fixed?
We were gonna go to try Walmart to see if they could fix them.
In what part of town? Which Walmart?
West Ashley.
And while you were on Paul Cantrell Boulevard, did you get a call?
Yes,
You got a call?
yes.
And who was that call from?
That call was from Lamar.
And when you got that call, could you tell that things were not good?
Right.
And did you understand that he was being stopped by the police?
Correct.
Did you stay on the phone with him
Yes.
for a period of time? Did you keep on driving?
No, I pulled in the media, and Miles kind of grabbed the phone out of my hand because,
Well, before you handed the phone to Miles, could you hear Walter saying anything?
yes,
How did he sound?
he didn't sound very good at all.
Go ahead.
He sounded in distress.
And could you hear anyone else's voice besides Walter's voice?
Yes,
And did you have any idea who that might be?
well, he told me when he first called that the policeman stopped him.
Okay. And so later you heard another man's voice,
Yes,
and you didn't recognize that voice?
no,
It was not Lamar?
no.
Okay. And what kinds of things could you hear being said over the phone before Miles took the phone from you?
All I heard was, get on the ground and put your hands behind your back.
How about for Walter? Walter didn't say that.
No,
What did you hear Walter saying around that same time?
he said, they tasing me. And I heard him groaning like he was in excruciating pain a couple of times.
Okay. And were you telling Walter to do anything?
I just said, just do whatever the officers say do.
And you kept telling him that? Did you keep telling him that?
I said, Lamar, just do whatever he say, because you know how,
That's just what you told him, not what you were thinking.
well, I told him, you know North Charleston policemen. So just do whatever they say.
And at any point when you had Walter on the phone, did you hear any gunshots?
No,
And you mentioned that you didn't have the phone the whole time.
no, I didn't.
Miles took the phone from you?
Yes,
Did you and Miles ever make it to Walmart?
no,
Do you know how long y'all kept the phone open or the line open? You know
It
how many
was-
minutes or anything like that?
no.
So instead of going to Walmart, what did you and Miles do?
We went to Janaris and Rodney's house.
That's your youngest son.
Yes,
Was that near Paul Cantrell?
yes.
That area? And why did you go there instead of Walmart?
Because I knew Miles was, he was terrified. He was hollering and screaming and saying,
Let's not get into what Miles was saying, but he was upset.
yes, very much.
So you wanted to get him to write.
Right. And I had to go to the bathroom.
And tried to get people in your family to go to where you thought Walter was?
Yes,
Little Lamar, did you call him?
yes,
Did you call any Anthony or Rodney?
well, I was at Rodney's house.
Was he there?
I don't remember if I know Janaris was home, but
His wife? His wife?
yes, his wife was home.
How was it that you knew where to tell little Lamar to go? How did you know where to tell him?
Because Lamar told me where he was.
Walter told you? Walter Lamar told you?
Yes, Lamar told me
Okay.
where he was at.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
News, we're sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Anything further?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll recess for the day and start at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Everyone be seated, please. Regarding jury sequestration, regarding witness sequestration, once a witness testifies, they're no longer under sequestration. Be clear about that. Thought I saw Mr. Rutherford here. Mr. Savage, are there any additional issues regarding Mr. Rutherford's documents that you received? I think see if you see him out there. Whether Mr. Savage has received the documents from your file, inquiring of him as to whether he has any other issues that he needs to address with you concerning it.
Thank you, Your Honor.
No further issues regarding this file?
Yes.
No. Any other matters before we leave for this day?
Nothing from Slager. We made good progress today, though. 8 witnesses, pretty good.
All right. Anything further, Mr. Savage?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, we'll recess till 9 a.m.
Thank you, Your Honor.